Hello, 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 hello. So, this video is a little bit different than anything that I've done before. For one of my classes for college, I had to do a literacy narrative of sort of my relationship with writing and with, like, literacy growing up. And I made sort of a multimodal thing with it, and I think it turned out pretty great, so here you go. When I was young, my parents would read aloud to me and my sisters almost every night. It was my favorite time of day. I would spend the whole day giddy with excitement about finding out what happened next in the story. Me and my sisters always had pretty good reading comprehension, and my parents wanted to challenge us, so they made a point to never read us kids' books. We could read those on our own time if we so chose, but for reading aloud, it was always fantasy adventure stories. My favorites were always The Hobbit and The Belgariad. I loved the sense of wonder those stories captured. I grew up surrounded by stories. When I was afraid, I would read, and reading was always safe for me. Because no matter what happened, the stories never changed, and they were always beautiful. My history with writing was always good, so it was no wonder when I started writing my own stories. My handwriting and spelling were bad, but the stories still shone through to me, and I felt like I was swimming in a sea of colors. So I would write, my handwriting always shaky, big, and sloppy, but I didn't care. The story shone through to me, and that's what mattered to me. When I got to third grade, my teacher saw writing the same way I did, as a medium for stories to be sculpted from. The class had writing time set aside every day, where the teacher would give us empty book pages and let us fill them up with words. That was my favorite year of all my schooling. I wrote 5 picture books as a series about me and my pet lizard. Although my handwriting was barely legible, I still won the class award for Best Story. As I looked at the messy cardboard cover with a sticker proclaiming that I had won the Classroom 13 Award of Excellence, I felt proud. Writing was satisfying to me. It made me feel fulfilled. My teachers after that were not so kind. They placed all their emphasis on the technicalities. Writing wasn't about the story, it was about the technique. They told me that I held the pencil the wrong way, that I should be able to type without taking my hands off the keyboard. They said that my math equations were written in the wrong format, although I could never see the difference. They would pull me out of class to take spelling quizzes on words I should have mastered years ago. I knew everyone in the class knew, and it made me feel stupid. It hurt a little bit. Like my confidence was being sapped out of me. I was cracking open, and I could feel it. I tried to plaster over those cracks with determination that, no, I was correct. The way it was actually done was wrong and weird. I didn't see the point in trying to study how to do things right, because my way worked better anyway. It did not take long for that hard shell of defiance to shatter to pieces in my hands. I didn't want to write anymore, because writing meant trying to write in the correct way. It was uncomfortable and nearly painful. I didn't know why I couldn't write like that. It just felt wrong. It felt like bending my hand backward. It didn't hurt, but it felt gross, like I could feel my muscles moving in a way that was viscerally wrong. It took me a while to figure out why that was. Truth was, I had autism. My parents bought me books to help me practice my handwriting. I tried them out, mostly in an effort to appease my parents, but they felt condescending. They treated me like I was a toddler. And I didn't really use them after I realized that. Instead, I would sit at my desk and spell out the scientific names of my favorite animals. I wrote them over and over and over again till the whole page was filled and the sun was going down, and somehow, after everything, my handwriting still wasn't good. In middle school, I started writing poetry. I never handwrote any of it because typing was easier to me, and on my computer, I have spell check. I liked poetry because there weren't any rules to it. No one can tell you you write poetry wrong. I started posting my works to the Young Writers Society, a message board style website where you can post your works and get them reviewed by your peers. My first couple poems got great reviews, and that was all the encouragement I needed to keep writing. I started work on a few short stories, and some of which actually got completed. The first real short story I completed was a fiction piece from the perspective of a newly created god. The story made it onto the featured page of the website, and I felt the same way I had back in that third grade classroom, filled with that same sense of pride. To this day, it is still one of my favorite things I have ever written. I decided to keep writing, despite the potential for judgment. My poetry and stories carried me through some of the hardest times of my life. When my first attempt at a chapter book never made it past chapter 2, I didn't mind. I filed it away to get back to someday when my skills were better and I could tell the story properly. It didn't matter that I failed to write it because the story itself was still undamaged, waiting for me to try again. Something at the back of my head still tugged at me, telling me that this was wrong and that I would never write properly. I did my best to ignore it. College is easier than the rest of my schooling ever was. Turns out most of those rules they told me weren't even important. You're almost never forced to write properly for more than a few sentences. No one will laugh at you if you still look at the keyboard when you type. No one actually cares how you format your long division as long as you get the right answer. So really, all of that pain was for nothing. It was for nothing because for the most part I was right. That is a powerful realization to have, that despite everything, I still won. But winning wasn't actually the point, because the battle should never have been real. Writing mistakes don't matter, because you can always fix them. I've been teaching myself to write incorrectly, again. Forgetting the rules, ignoring the technicalities. I've been improving and rewriting those stories I wrote in my youth. My handwriting's still shaky, big floppy letters and colorful pens, pausing to look up words I don't know how to spell. Even when I do make mistakes, they aren't permanent. I laugh about them to myself and then cross them out and try again. I repeat that as many times as it takes. According to all I've been taught, that's not normal, but I don't care anymore. Not caring is a good shield, it turns out. When I stopped caring what people thought, I took my writing back. My writing started being mine again. Now, even when I write an essay for a class, I still write it only for myself. I write to feel the colors of the story swirling around my hands. That's what writing means to me, as it always has, even if I had forgotten it for a while.